Hello, I am Robert Lunte, founder of CourseCREEK Consulting, lead project manager, sometimes instructional designer, and welcome to our CourseCREEK Consulting live stream, where we interview people that are movers and shakers and, well, talented in the industry, as well as course creators and clients. Today, I'm super excited about having the opportunity to bring on my friend and partner, Joshua Brown. Joshua Brown is a world-class instructional designer. And in fact, with much gratitude, we have the privilege of having Josh work with our company at CourseCREEK as well. So I've been able to watch firsthand the work that he does and the knowledge and the industry experience that he has on every Tuesday morning meeting that we have. And it's fantastic, full of stories. And, you know, instructional design is this other piece of online course creation that oftentimes can be glossed over or sort of done in a half-assed way by people that don't have professional training. I know, because I've done that before myself. But by just literally hanging out with Josh, I've learned that there's tactics and strategies and best practices that we can use to make an online course more engaging, to retain the attention of the students, and in the end, take them through a meaningful and lasting transformation. That is to say that they learn something at the end of it and everybody gets what they need out of the experience. You have to have a pro like Josh to do it. So without any more further ado, I'm gonna introduce Joshua. Say hello to our viewers, and thanks for being here this morning.
Well, Robert, thanks so much for having me here. I'm looking forward to diving into courses and instructional design and give a few tidbits everybody can take away today to increase their courses and understand the process a little bit more for maximum results.
Yeah, right. Fantastic. Well, then let's just get after this. Tell us a little bit about your background, your experience in instructional design and online courses. I know a little bit about that, but I look forward to learning more about you actually in this moment. So yeah, who are you? How did you get here? What's your relationship with online courses? What have you built before in the past? And how did you get into this work?
Well, I have a very odd path getting here. Like, I think almost everybody in the online space did. I don't think anybody has ever gone a straight line there. My background is that I was a teacher for about a decade. And I have a master's of education, 3/4 of a PhD, and spent literally a vast majority of my life learning and about how to not only create courses, but deliver them. I actually instructed a very unique area called career and technical education, things like video production, graphics, photography, all of that. And I was actually a subject matter expert in the space and published curriculum developer for those areas. So actually some of my curriculums right now are being used by thousands of students in the state of Virginia. And I went about it from also learning from my dad. He was actually a instructional designer for in the Navy, but then also for DoD contractors. So I've been always surrounded by this. I uniquely came to education because I was a career switcher. I was in sales and special events, and something Robert and I riff on regularly. I was in the production world, and I got into teaching and loved it. I loved the transformation and the ability to take something that I did, because the area I taught, everybody gets into that area actually had to have working experience doing it. It wasn't just in a book. So I got to show people what I did for a profession, what I did for a living, and in turn, change people's lives. And that ties directly into what we do here and what I'm doing right now. And, you know, it was something that was extremely unique in this area. I haven't run across anybody else who's doing this with an educator's background like me, because everything I did and what I bring to CourseCREEK is that I'm wrapping everything not only in best practices, but the understanding of educational science and psychology to go with it for things like increased completion rates, longer memory cognition, things like that to go along with it. So not just delivering information, but people remember the information, use it, and love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you used to teach at a school, I believe, or something in regards to instructional design. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was a teacher, and I've taught actually not only in high schools, but I've taught adult education as well, a whole variety of different areas. I've also led instructions in the corporate space and consulted as well now for quite a while in honing that craft and delivering the best results, and while keeping up with it as well. That was one of the things that in my areas I perpetually had to stay up to date on the best practices and delivery techniques, and it goes hand in hand with what online courses is. All of it has video, all of it has graphics, all of it has curriculum design, so it's right in the wheelhouse of all the things that I was doing and led me here.
I understand you've actually made some course content. We touched on it briefly, and for me, coming from my background as a voice coach, and even now with CourseCREEK, it sort of comes over into the new thing, which is it's a big deal to lead by example, and I think that's one of the things that is sort of cool about my team, frankly speaking. So
yeah,
share with us a little bit about your efforts as a course creator.
Well, my big draw in my course creation in what I have worked towards is bringing integrity to the courses you deliver. And there's a lot of, using a very old phrase, but a lot of snake oil out there. People that deliver big promises, or it's a shiny package, but in the inside, there's very little content. And it, unfortunately, in this space, and in the past couple of years, you've seen it come back, is just by marketing, the best products were actually getting pushed out, but people are fed up with buying something that doesn't have results. It doesn't get them the promise they have. So those who are true experts and passionate about what they're doing are actually getting ahead of those who just have shiny marketing and throw a random course together over a weekend and think they can sell it for $1 million. Is people are realizing you have to deliver on that promise, and you have to be able to create something that actually is transformative, and that quality counts. That's part of it. Is, a lot of people in this space initially were throwing out, just throw together some Zoom calls and throw it together in a learning management system and put a PayPal link out there and you're good to go, and you're go ahead and pick out your Lambo, and it's not the case. And there are people out there that early on in the space did that and did make a lot of money on it. But ultimately, here's the thing. I would never put my name on something, neither should you, and neither does Robert or anybody else on the team, that isn't something that we wouldn't stand in front of and go, this is mine. You're going to love it. It's not hiding behind marketing. It's not hiding behind flashy things, or the phrase that a lot of coaches love to throw out. Well, they didn't have the mindset, or they didn't have the drive to finish my content. Well, part of your job as a course creator is, yes, are there going to be some of those people that, they show up and they never do anything, but then ultimately you should empower them with every possibility to be successful. So at the end of the day, you can go to bed with a clear conscience going, I gave them every tool possible, used every technique possible, and put my best content out there. So, the only variable out there was the person just didn't have drive. Other than that, the people that do have that, they do follow your methods, and your content are going to have an amazing result. They're going to have a transformative experience, and they're going to learn something from it and get their money's worth.
Apart from the fact that I found that consumers / students are really super savvy, especially those that have had a course or two. I mean, I have some mini courses out at Udemy for our platform funneling strategy, as you know, and those people collect courses, and they've got bad ones and great ones and all kinds of stuff, and they'll call you out. They'll call you out if there's something, a link that's broken, or something that you make a reference to a video that's 5 years old but still has some value to it, but you're referencing something that didn't evergreen. And it's like, hey Robert, where's the new one thing that you were talking about? Like, oh boy, yeah, that was like 12 years ago. Here's the new one. But
Yeah. Because keyboard warriors are there in this space. I mean, the thing is, like, they will call you on your stuff quick. And that's one of the biggest things, and particularly as the price goes up, the expectation goes up as well.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of it.
And with the review systems, you won't survive.
No.
The review systems is sort of the great equalizer. If they're happy, you get high reviews, you get more conversions. If they're not happy, you get low reviews, and you're just dead. You go nowhere. So you don't have a choice. I'm sort of coattailing a little bit on what Josh was saying. As a course creator myself, you don't have a choice. There isn't sort of an option to do a half-assed option production, or something that's good, but not really, didn't have everything you could put into it. You don't really have that option, because you'll be called out if you don't do it great. Anyways, tying it all back in, this is where instructional design comes in. So,
and it's the most missed piece out of all of this, because it's kind of the non-sexy part of it, but it literally is like having no skeleton behind. You can have all this flashy stuff on the outside, but it won't support itself unless you have a framework underneath it.
And instructional design is an art form that exists, the ability to like make an engaging curriculum that exists. It's super important, but is first-time creators are just completely blind to it. They don't really. Well, no problem. I can get in front of a camera. I'm just going to fire up a camera, and here's my list of lessons I'm going to do. I wrote it down on a notepad, and I'm ready to go. This can be and someone like Josh should be like terrified. No. You gotta have a summary, an intro, a transformation, quizzes, PDF download. Who knows? Maybe voiceover on animation, and
God, and that's one of those things that, like, I see so many people saying that, like, oh, just write down some ideas and then record it and throw it in there, and you just have to record your thoughts on it. So I'm like, if you're putting that much time and effort into it, and ultimately money, because it takes money to host these things, if you're going to use paid traffic, if you've run paid traffic recently, it's not a cheap endeavor. And any of that, like, take the extra step to make sure it's good. Because here's ultimately the thing. This is what everybody forgets when they're in this, except if you've been in it like Robert and I, is completion rates equal continuity and continued sales. If somebody takes your program, knows and loves it, they're going to brag to their friends about it. So I don't know about you. My favorite sales are the referral ones, because they cost me nothing and they've already vouched for you.
Yeah.
And on top of it, anytime you put a product in front of them, they know they got a result, they loved it, they know, like, and trust you now, they're going to want to consume, because you stand out from the rest, because it's a known win.
Right.
So it's literally, you're throwing money away by not taking the time to make sure it's an exceptional product.
Correct. So we have sufficiently beat up on that point. So if you guys are working with CourseCREEK, I'm going to stick this guy on you. I'm going to
make sure you have a good program.
I'm going to stick my dog on it. He's going to make sure that this is good and it's well done. All right. Fantastic. So it's a nice segue to our next question, which is, and we'll try to make it snappy. I think it's super clear. What are 3 mistakes course creators make early on that impacts the final outcome? So what are some things that people think they can get away with, or that they do, that keeps you up at night?
One of the big ones for me, and it's a common theme in the industry, and it was an old thought behind it before there were some better methods, was there was the idea of sell it and then make it. Sell a course to a group of people as a beta test, and then see if people want to buy it. Well, here's ultimately the thing behind that. First of all, is these people are going to be here waiting for it. It then puts pressure on you that you have to put something out, and in a very prompt fashion. And it ends up with a lot of the problem of these courses out there that are just garbage. They're really bad. And people might have gotten an initial bit of social proof because they poked and prodded somebody enough, or they gave them a win in lesson 1, then asked them for a review, which happens, by the way. But ultimately, you have people that handed you money hoping that you're going to have a great product. And then with that pressure you now have that you have to have it produced in a certain amount of time, most people, particularly new course creators, are just going to throw something out there so they can fulfill the mechanical promise of having this product. I will say you do need to do some research, find out if your idea will sell. Particularly if it's something brand new. You need to have some background to find out. But honestly, with the amount of research tools out there that we employ, or anybody can really employ at this point, you can find out if your content area is something that will sell. I mean, I don't have to tell you twice that, a marketing course will sell. I mean, it's just a matter of, it doesn't really take you to do a beta launch to figure out if somebody's going to buy a marketing course, just use a very broad example.
Are you saying then that the first thing is sell it before you make it is not advised? And then are you saying that the second thing is make sure you've done adequate market research?
Yeah, because you don't want to make something nobody's going to buy. Because basically the second point is very easy to figure out, is you don't want to make something nobody's going to buy. But there's very few areas that at this point doesn't have some sort of an online market for purchasing. I mean, if you literally searched around Udemy for 5 minutes, you're going to see some wacky stuff that have sold like hotcakes.
No kidding.
And I mean, the prime example for anybody is, I actually met one, a course creator that had a course on handstanding, for goodness sakes, and literally sold 6 figures a year worth of it. And if you can sell stuff like that, or even super niche things, if you can find that there's a community for it, there's a course in it. But ultimately, the thing is that this idea of selling and then fulfilling on the promise, to me, I just have ethically a problem with it.
Yeah,
because it ends up that you are selling a promise that then you have to fulfill on without a product there. And in particular, and we actually riffed on this the other day, is that if you do have a following already and you're coming out with a level 2 or an adjacent course that you are fulfilling, okay, yeah, you can open that up to a pre-sell because you're adding on to it, or you have a known audience. That's a little bit different because you've done down that road, you've made a course, you know the pieces, you're going to deliver it the same way as the prior program. That's a little bit different, but I will caveat this in heavily for everybody's like, well, I made one. If it sold really well, you had high success.
Well,
if you have not,
if you pre-sell, I'm just curious, what do you achieve? I mean, if I were to do a pre-sell, okay, now I have 250 new people that have pre-purchased content and a course and everything that I haven't even started and filming.
I do waiting list.
I'm now obligated to cough that up or have a monumental refund disaster and PR problem on my hands.
Yep.
So I don't really even understand what you achieve with that,
And
I would say make sure that maybe you could be literally show some behind the scenes footage of you making something and producing something, and then take some orders. But at least it looks like you actually are in fact working on something that can be delivered. Yeah.
And in particular, if you notice, I caveat at the beginning of that heavily. You have a very successful program with a following. Even with that, I actually don't sell. I do a waiting list. I take and I put it out there as an initial, hey, here's the list of people if you want to be first in on it, and then release to that list first. Yeah. So I will tease the information out there and show them what's coming, things like that. Particularly, just mechanically give those initial people a little bit of a discount if I want to make sure there's an initial influx. But ultimately, I never like to actually fully take money unless I have the product in hand, because all it takes is one delay, even you to get sick, and which particularly with all the stuff going on in the world right now, and you're out for a month. People are still going to be waiting. They're still going to want their product. There's a lot of variables. So I don't even like to pre-sell. I'll still tease it out there, but I don't even like a full sell.
All right. So we have 3 things. Remember 3 things. Don't pre-sell. We beat up on that. And I made the point is you're not going to achieve anything by doing that anyways. You're just going to paint yourself into a corner. All right. Do adequate market research, right? And by the way, we can do market research for you. That's part of our program if anybody needs help with that. And 3, what's the third mistake that people make in instructional design, or just making online courses in general, based on your experience, would be fine, that is influencing the outcome in a not so favorable way?
People buy with their eyes, and they stay with their eyes. Quality counts. And the particularly after 2020, with all the Zoom calls and people spending time with their home streaming systems and all of that, quality counts when you're making a program. The video quality needs to be tight. The audio quality needs to be tight. Your lighting needs to be tight. The deliverables, the slides, and with that quality, nobody wants, as I used to call in the industry, death by PowerPoint. You flipping through slides, doing a voiceover, talking about it. Nor do they want to sit there for 6 hours and just see you talk. You have to make something that engages. It varies the content delivery. It varies how they're getting the information.
Yes.
Give them facts, give them stories, give them background information, give them an interview as you're going through that course, all while maintaining the quality of what you're putting out there.
All right. So diversity of delivery, and even something we've been talking about a lot lately offline, is format. There's the talking head, and then there's animations, voiceover animation technology, which is super fun and useful. There's even like, for example, I'm working with an account right now. We might be working with is a sort of a missionary. It's a hardcore Christian group, and they're really sweet. And we were talking about how we can get their message out and help them do that. And I thought, well, why don't we just do like an animated Jesus? I think that'd be sort of cool.
Yeah, I mean, and that type of stuff stands out,
but it could be fun, And the other thing is sort of like our Articulate 360, where you have these multimedia interactive. It's kind of like a slide, but it's got buttons and bells and whistles and quizzes and polls and movement in it and stuff. So that's other things that you do to jazz it up, right? Sort of what you're saying.
Yeah. Because in a $325 billion a year industry, yes, that's billion dollar industry, there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of people that you're going to be compared to.
Yeah.
And you need to stand out in the crowd. Part of that's in the marketing, and part of that's just the product that you have out there. And if your product is subpar, you're going to have subpar results, because ultimately, no matter how good the content is, people are going to have to sit in front of it. They're going to have to absorb it. And ultimately, people buy with their eyes and they buy with their ears. Is the audio good? Is the video good? If those things are tight, you're already in the top 10%, because there's so many bad products out there. I mean, so many things. And honestly, the barrier now to get into high quality filming and video now is so much lower than it was. When I first got into this industry, to get a camera that even did halfway decent quality was well over $1,000, just a camera. And now with all the great technology out there, you can have a wonderful video quality. You can, have great audio quality for a fraction of the cost. So why not do it?
Yep. I like to point out too that audio is, to me, it seems that audio is more of a challenge than video. Provided they have a good camera and some decent lighting. I'm sure there'd be some people videographers that might disagree with me on that. But to me, it's the video. You turn on the camera, you got decent lighting, you're usually okay. But the audio requires a little bit more technology and adapters and plugins and fresh batteries and placement of the lavalier in the right position and things like that. So don't underestimate the value of good
weird me
audio.
With the giant mics, that's Robert and I switch it up. He does a lab, I do giant condenser mics.
I tried giant mic. I tried a big mic that would look cool in these interviews. It's like all pimpy and blingy, and I just didn't get the right sound. It was still thin and weird. So, I'm going back to my Rode Lav. Okay. So we've talked a lot about instructional design and what not to do, and things to sort of look out for and be careful for. want to take a moment to just have you sort of let's go down in altitude from 40,000 feet to say 2,000 feet. For example, day one as a CourseCREEK instructional designer. Josh, here's your client. Help them out. Start working on the storyboard. Start doing your mojo and all of your magic in a real practical way. What are the things that somebody would work with on you specifically? What would you have them do? What would you specifically be discussing on day one?
How to make it epic. That's always my thing. I want it when somebody walks away, it to be epic, and that falls into the actual content, because ultimately, at the end of the day, the big piece that we have difference between ordinary and epic is the flow of the content.
Okay.
And a course is a journey. You have to take them on an A to B journey. You take your client or your customer or student, whatever you want to call them, and the vast majority of them are starting here at A. And your job is to give them the map to get to B. How to get over the mountains, how to get around the rivers, all of those things. Those turning points along there is the content and the deliverables that get them from A to B. So what we do first is we analyze the content. What we do is we sit down and I go over a 3-step process to mine all that information, because the vast majority of course creators are experts in what they do or are heavily passionate about it. And they've done it for a while. They have been involved with it for a while. But ultimately, particularly when you are an expert at it, you end up skipping over stuff. You end up because you're so ingrained on it, you can skip it. So what we do is we go through both linear and non-linear information mining. So what we do is we go through and we figure out what the A to B transformation is. That's been our first piece. Figure out what are our promise at the end.
Okay, next.
And then what we do is we figure out where all the big turns are, the units. Where are the big pieces that need to happen?
Okay.
When
you say unit, you mean units sort of industry talk. He actually taught me this. I used to call them, well, I still do, modules, sections, right? So when he says unit, there's like a chapter of the book, and then there's lessons inside, and then there's module number 2, and the lessons inside. Yeah. Just want to clarify that for people.
Basically, a unit is a collection of lessons.
Okay, perfect.
So what we do is we figure out where those are. And then what we do is from those big units, we throw out all the ideas. So we go through all of our mindset. And we don't do it linearly. We sit there and we go through and just throw all the ideas out there, and we write them all down. Big things, small things, graphics we want, a quote we might want to use, examples from your past, all of these things. We put them out there completely non-linearly. And the reason is that inevitably what's in our head, not from prior existing notes, are the most important pieces. So that basically is the thing that are the most important to you as an expert in those areas. Then we go to linear. So what we do is we take all those ideas and we as a team sit down and we lay it all out in order. So then we take all those random ideas.
And you lay it all out in order. Sorry to interrupt. You lay it all out in order, and it goes where? They scratch it. You let the client go to a coffee shop and scratch it into their spiral notebook, or where does that go?
If somebody is tactile, they can use a notebook. If they're like me and like us, we use a storyboard.
Thank you.
That's what Robert likes to call it. It's always a hard one for me with my theater background. So we always call them a little bit different. We have different verbiage. Like I call it a unit. His is a module. We wrap back and forth with terminology.
Well, I just want people to know that we get organized. That we
are heavily organized. See, for those of you, by the way, that have an education background, we call this a curriculum. Just so y'all know, it's a curriculum. We're building a curriculum. I always love, by the way, different industries have different catchphrases on stuff, but they all do the same thing.
You got to try being a voice coach.
Teacher, everything's in 3-letter acronyms. So what we do is we lay it all out. the reason why that first step, I actually normally have them handwrite it, is many of our clients are type A. They want immediately order, and it has to be in order, and then they'll skip steps. So what you do is when you do it nonlinear, then when you put it in a linear format, you find where the missing spots are.
Okay.
Like, oh, hold on. These are two really important things, and this is the order, but what goes in between? And that's why you put it on a spreadsheet, or in this case, we use a storyboard. You can shoot those little pieces in. And then also you realize that's really cool, but it doesn't really fit anywhere. Bonus lesson, and you throw it at the end. And you can give a bonus lesson or something like that. If it's still something you want to instruct, but it doesn't fit in the transition. Anytime I've found I've done this 3-step progression, the results have been 10x.
Yeah.
Just going straight to a spreadsheet and trying to create an order.
Okay.
Because it uses actually different parts of your brain to harvest those.
Okay. So let's take inventory. How do you approach instructional design? So we discuss the transformation and purpose for the learner.
Yep.
You then do what it sounds like, sort of you ideate. You get all the ideas and the topics and the module headlines and the lessons and that one cool quote and that one life story I want to work in here somehow. You sort of ideate, you sort of scatter it out like pick up sticks on the floor, but at least you can now just sort of see everything that you need. And then you put that into a tool like our storyboard spreadsheet. You begin to line it out in a linear fashion. And then it sounds like what you're doing is you then sort of fill in the gaps once you have that one. Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
And the reason, and basically you end up doing it twice, which allows for more robust content because you've done it once linearly, once nonlinear, and you've done it once linearly. And that allows for a lot more robust content and results of what you're doing because I actually, being the very visual person I am, I'm an extremely visual learner. And there's different learning styles. There's auditory, visual, kinesthetic. Those are the 3 biggies. Is if you're writing it down, you're engaging actually 2 of them at once. And then talking it out with somebody like me engages the auditory while you're still writing it down. So you end up hitting all of those. You engage the different memory centers of your brain to recall your experiences. So we actually will together sit down and go through it because I can point out, hey, I don't understand between these 2. So you have an outsider going, that needs a piece.
That's key.
You know, because if, like, for example, I'm not a singer. I will save you all from that. Robert that's his circle of genius for his specialty. And I need things. He basically goes through it and he's an expert at it. But when he has somebody else also go, that doesn't, you have a second person going, that doesn't, I don't quite get that. I guarantee you somebody else in your client pool will have the same question. So then you're able to hit so many more of those people that also come from a 0 on that knowledge, base. You
get out of here. So the one-on-one session with a party that is not an expert, not just a party, but an expert that is not so closely in the skin and living it day to day is super valuable, folks. It really is, because as a course creator, he made reference to singing. I did a whole bunch of courses on vocal training. So in another life, I'm a voice coach. I help people train to become better singers. So, and my book and my courses get sort of scientific-y and they get sort of very methodology-ish, and that's all really fun and great. But I found I learned that lesson where I would go back based on customer feedback and I would look at things and I'd realize, I kind of sympathize with some of the students that are telling me great content, really comprehensive. I can see you put a lot of work into this, but can you just tell me how to warm up? Can you just tell me
you just do it anyway.
how to get a sound? I dig it, but and I had to get over myself a little bit as a course creator, and I had to come back and go, wait a minute, am I making this content only for me and people that are at my level of understanding, just like only voice coaches, or am I making this for my students? And so the outcome of that was, sort of backpedaled and I mean this in a respectful way, sort of dumbed down some content so that they could kind of catch up and get to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually got the idea from this outside analysis, actually from a business principle called lean engineering, where they always have somebody who's not an expert analyze all the methods, all the processes that were going on.
Yeah.
So like they actually, for example, to give the very, very short version of this, is they were trying to figure out where they were hemorrhaging budget from a plane. They actually put cameras up and had people who weren't experts in it figure out where all the engineers kept going to work on the plane, and figured out that because they're all just like, oh, that's what we do. They didn't realize that just because it's what they do was killing at over $100 an hour per person.
Yeah.
Like it ended up being like between all the people, like 200 hours a week in the process, because they were so ingrained in what they do. They never saw that being something that other people don't get. And then some of the outsider was able to go, well, what if we just change the process and put an extra toolbox on the top of that ladder, so you don't have to keep going up and down, save 200 hours a week for $1,000 for the tool at the top.
Yeah.
Just from an outside person going, why?
I have a perfect story for this too. I did the instructional design with our client, as you know, Claire Gangadine, who does the, we have a happy client who has physical fitness routines for people that ride horses. Like that's a thing. Okay. To properly ride your horse, and it's sort of for the horse's benefit. So we started working on it, and we were doing a lot of videography on camera work with her, and she sort of set it all up, and it sort of looked like a yoga on a mat and stretching and working out and stuff that was just her on camera. And that's great. You have to have content like that. But I do sort of proud of myself. At some point, I once we got into it, I sort of said, time out. I think we're missing something here. There's something that we're missing. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Well, no, I got the routine and the butt ups and the stretches and the workouts and everything's happening. But no, you know what? There's a star in the show that's not here yet. I mean, this is about beautiful, gorgeous.
The horse?
Steeds. So that took me into a conversation with her, and she didn't think about that, but quickly agreed. Like, look, I understand you can't bring the horse into the workout living room, but what we should do is work in some content in the edits of you outdoors on the steed galloping, be it an intro or an outro or gallop, stop, look to the camera, say something on the, while you're on the horse. We have to put the horse in the show.
It's like a singing course and you never sing a bar, it's like, it's like.
So now the horse is in the show, and it makes the content more interesting and beautiful to look at. And it's great. It's cool. All right. All right. So why are you hanging with me? Why are such a guy such as you working with a CourseCREEK? Why do we have the fortune of you on our team? What is it about this that is working for you?
We had to bring somebody on with a big beard. I mean, that's where we're filling out, the team. That's the other in my weird sense of humor. But that check done. The real big thing is having people, particularly in this space, that CourseCREEK provides a robust ability to provide support. And each person has their own circle of genius in this process. So for example, you're going to deal with me in P2. I'm a master of my craft. I will firmly put on that building courses and content that goes with those courses is what I do, and I do it very well. And you should be confident in your content area. That's the number one thing you need to. Yeah. But I'm confident in that. Then we have other people that it's not like I kind of have to dabble in other areas, like, I'm putting on the how to make a sales funnel over here. Joey on the team is, that's what he lives and breathes for, is doing all of that implementation side. Is particularly for so many people, they need that extra, because time is money. And if you have people that are dedicated to certain processes, you get it done quicker with a lot less question marks. So that's when you come to us, you're dealing with each person who is a expert in their own area. You're dealing with me in the course. We're going to hone that piece out beautifully. Then we're going to put you over to P3, to Joey, who's going to work on the implementation, getting all those pieces together. We have a REIT in there who's going to be doing, making sure all the graphics components are tight, and we have different team members that can do that. So you get it done in a very quick fashion, but then also know you're getting the best of the best for each piece. And that's really the big thing that is an interesting dynamic that's very unique here that we do.
Yeah. Thank you. A process. He's referring to P2, P3 is referring to a 4-phase process. Phase 1 would be an audit, a consultation process where we bring in the dream team, which includes him. We engage the client, do a deep dive needs analysis, and come back with a proposal that has executable tasks, budget, and everything. They're ready to go. Then we move on to, if the client starts to move forward, we move on to phase 2, which is Josh's domain, instructional design creation. Phase 3 is implementation into learning management systems, and then we get into sort of how we drive traffic to the funnels. But thank you for sharing that with them. I really appreciate that, and it's been great to have you here. Really
glad to be here.
It's been lovely. All right, so we have this really fun question here. This is in some sense like the best part of the show. It's where we ask the guests to be a little bit vulnerable. So tell us, share with us about a time when you were challenged, when there was adversity in your life. And it could be course related, maybe it's not. It doesn't really matter so much. But after this adversity, you rose like a phoenix. You came back stronger, better than ever. What was the mindset? What was the practical advice? What was the thing that you changed, that you had to do, that sort of saved yourself and got you back on track? What is your hero story?
Well, for me, it was to take a step back to understand the framing of this. I was I was a career switcher. I did other things prior to being a teacher. Got into it because I enjoyed giving back to the community, particularly serving a community that was really beaten down. I dealt with a lot of students who, were told they were dumb or weren't high performing. It was because they learned differently. They were the tech kids, the ones that worked with their hands and learned with their eyes and things like that. So that was my way of sort of giving back to my community. And I did it, but then I finally got basically mentally broken down enough that I just wasn't happy anymore. And I wanted to do something else. And I was sitting there and realized I'd pulled up to the school, and mind you, my wife actually worked at the school as well. So we arrived at school, and she said, I got to go in. Okay, I'm gonna sit here for a minute. And I was sitting outside the school, and I was staring at the steering wheel, and realized I was staring at the steering wheel for like 20 minutes because I didn't want to go in the door. And it hit me, and I was just like, I can't keep doing this. I wasn't happy. And I had a lot of great students. I will say that I did have a lot of good ones, but it was the other things that just finally beat me down, with poor leadership by many people. We had some great leaders, but a lot of bad ones, ridiculous paperwork, horrible pay. And I always had a side job. I owned another business, completely irrelevant to this, but another business that did pretty well. And I still loved being an entrepreneur and all those pieces. And I finally went to my wife and I went, I can't keep doing this. I'm done. I'm burned. So I did what everybody does when they're thinking about leaving their job, is you go, and I knew I wanted to do something online. I literally Googled how to make money online. And mind you, now I am retargeted on Facebook forevermore with every make money quick scheme imaginable, courtesy of that. Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg. And I was scrolling through these things. I'm an academic. I research the tar out of stuff. I mean, I literally did it forever. And so I was reaching through it, and I started seeing this industry of like, people are getting paid to teach stuff. You're getting paid really well to do it. So I bought a couple of courses on course making and marketing of them and things like that, and got some information out of it. But then, being the researcher I am, I looked at them and went, these are all really garbage. Like, they're really bad, and they're literally, I paid a lot of money for one in particular. I won't put the person on blast, but what very well-known program on it. It was literally 9 hours of him voicing over slide decks, literally PowerPoints, and every video was an hour long. And which, by the way, if you don't know, that is your max cap on informational new information is about 12 minutes, even for an adult, by the way, just FYI.
No.
That's a university study. And as all great entrepreneurs do, I went, I can fix that. It's literally what I do now. It's what I got paid by the state of Virginia to do, to build curriculums. So I put my name out there and I started working with course creators and, helping them build those out. And I've worked with literally and consulted with new course creators all the way up to those making 7 figures plus to optimize their programs. And people started paying me very well for it. They started paying me for my courses very well. And I was like, this can actually work. So I put in my notice in August and threw up my shingle online and started working in this space. And I've helped a lot of people build programs that they then love. They absolutely love what they're doing again. They're able to concentrate on their little circle of genius.
Yeah.
And people will pay them for it. That's the thing. $325 billion industry. If you harness 0.001% of that, you have an over $1 million a year job, of these. I mean, it's not hard to harness a little piece of that pie. And even since I got into it, there's so many more places like CourseCREEK that can help you get there. Because when in the early days, it was like the wild, wild west. Everything was kind of thrown together. You kind of had to pick and choose on these kind of shady platforms, and they weren't as user friendly, and there weren't as much support with it. But now it's flipped, that the bar for entry is lower, but the expectations are now higher.
Yeah.
And that's why what I do has become so important for so many people that are in the know, that to stand out, to get those reviews, to get that continuity of people buying from you again, it's got to be good now. Too many people are doing it. It's like with Henry Ford. There's only a couple of their cars on the market, and you either, if it wasn't so great, well, it was still a car. Okay. Now you got your pick of anything you want. The bar for that is now much higher. Same thing with courses. The bar is higher. You have higher expectation, but the same amount of reward is there. And if you take the time to stand out from the crowd, the rewards are exponential. And that was how I kind of got to here on that.
How'd you get the cool neon lights behind you? That's what I wanted to ask you that too, like the cool plan.
Amazon. In a former life, I was actually a lighting designer. That was what I did. I actually have a degree in theater, and specifically tech theater. So lighting was my thing. I had to have something cool back here.
It's dope. Hey, thanks for sharing that. I really, really appreciate it. That is cool. A lot of people I've noticed I've asked this question in these interviews oftentimes, and what's the same question? And there's a commonality to it. I have one too. I have a story as well. And it's sort of where I was doing this one thing. I was on this one path, and I burned out for whatever reason. Oftentimes included in that is just lack of scalability or lack of respect, or you've underemployed yourself, something along those lines. And I just had the courage and the nuts to just try something else. So, and then it takes off. So, folks do take risks. Take risks. And if you find yourself feeling sort of miserable in your current path, doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that path. It just means that you're at the end of that path. Sort of funny. Who's the guy that used to play Richie Cunningham in Happy Days? What's his name? Actor, now director.
Can't remember off the top of my head.
Gosh darn it! I wish I could think about that right now. But oftentimes I think about that as a source of inspiration. One point he was Opie, and then he was Richie Cunningham, and then he said, "I'm out. I want to get behind the camera, not in front of the camera," and went on to become a great director. So, anyways, I'm in the weeds a little bit. I don't want to steal your thunder or anything, but that was a great story. Thank you for sharing. It's really super cool. Okay. All right, we're almost done here. We're going to wrap up. We got one more cool thing. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. We do this in all of our shows here towards the end of the show. I just want you to look to the camera, and in 2 minutes, it's got to be 2 minutes. look to the camera, and in 2 minutes, share words, sort of parting words of wisdom for our viewers that will inspire them and give them something that's thought-provoking, that comes from your repertoire of life experience. If you wouldn't mind, please. Ready, go.
Well, the big thing that so many people, particularly thinking about getting into this industry, is in course creation or adding it to their arsenal of things they do, is that they forget that what's everyday to you is a superpower to others. And that superpower is something, because it's hard to look past as being on the inside, but is an unsurmountable task to others. You know, think about whenever you've looked at somebody who's done something with technology or a performance or an instrument or whatever it is, they're doing it innately and they just are able to accomplish it. And it seems insurmountable, but it's everyday to them. You have something in your bag of experience or your work experience or in your business that is a superpower to others that they want to learn, but you just haven't recognized it yet, or you haven't realized it is viable. There are so many people out there that want to know what you know and are willing to pay you for it. And in particular, don't sell yourself short and also devalue yourself. You know, you can provide, you know, just like this, you know, some solid content to show you know what you're doing, but don't be afraid to take that knowledge out there and have people invest in themselves and also then support you in your knowledge. You've spent a lifetime becoming an expert in that, being a genius at it, and you should be rewarded for it. And also realize that by them rewarding you for that, they've also now invested in it and have a buy-in. So take a look at inventory of what you do. If you've ever been told, you know, how do you do that? Or you're so good at that, things along that line, or things you just do innately. Inevitably, that's something that somebody else wants to learn and know and love. Mm-hmm. If you don't believe me on it, look at some of the online course places. Go to Udemy, something like that. Type in random topics and see what's out there. You'd be really surprised that what you look past is something that others would love to know, willing to pay you very well for it. And then you get to show people what you know and love and further that that growth of that area. And it's all not make money areas, everybody. It's a whole bunch of different topics, whether they're interpersonal, they're hobbies, whatever it is. Take a look out there. Somebody's waiting for you to take the initiative to put that information out there.
That's great. That is great.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll just leave it at that. Folks, thank you for being with us today, and we hope that you got something out of this. So I'm Robert Lunte from CourseCREEK Consulting. This is Josh Brown from CourseCREEK Consulting. And of course, if you have any questions about online courses or instructional design or anything, feel free to contact us. It's robert@CourseCREEK.com, josh@CourseCREEK.com. Go to our website, CourseCREEK.com. And thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for having me, Robert.
Oh, it's thank you for being part of our team, Josh.
Pleasure.